What's going on, everybody? Welcome to One True Sport Daily. I am not Zack Heydorn. I am Ryan Droste of the Top Rope Nation podcast. Thanks for joining me here on this Friday morning. As you can see, I am substitute hosting for my guy, Zack Heydorn. Zack out of commission for the next couple of days on assignment. So I decided to step in. I've seen what's going on here at One True Sport. I think it's a great project. Zack's a good friend of mine. And so I thought, why not? Why not step into the host chair and guest host today? So we're going to be talking all the latest news in pro wrestling today, the big news topics as we end the week. I know Zack was not able to do a show yesterday, so we are probably going to hit on what happened on Dynamite on Wednesday night pretty large today. We're going to talk a little bit about Who Killed WCW, which had its third episode the other night, and talk a little bit about SmackDown and what's scheduled for tonight at the Allstate Arena in Chicago. So if you're joining us here live tonight or this morning, I should say, for One True Sport Daily, let me know in the chat room. Get your comments going here in the show. Would love for this to be interactive. Let me know about what you think of the news of the day, what's been going on in the world of wrestling this week. And if you want to support One True Sport, of course, you can hit us with the super chat to get those chats featured for sure. But I'll get as many comments here in the stream as I can. And of course, support One True Sport. You can subscribe to the channel. You can like this video. It helps us out in the algorithm. There's all kinds of good stuff going on here at One True Sport. Recently, we've got a question and answer coming up with Dustin Rhodes on June 24th. That's going to be part of the Traveling Champion tier. So if you want to hear all about the tiers and the membership program we got going on here at One True Sport, hit up onetruesport.com to find out all about that. Last night, our guy Dom was live with Rob Van Dam, and there is the audio of One of a Kind with RVD available right now for members. You can check that out if you are a One True Sport member, or you can check out the stream here on the YouTube channel. We've got talks with Cody Rhodes, Stan Hansen. That's all this is stuff that Rob Van Dam talked about. He talked about cults in wrestling, kind of going off of what happened with the Wyatt 6 debut on Monday night. So if you want to hear RVD talk about Cody Rhodes, Stan Hansen, cults in wrestling, make sure you check out that show. And there's new Four Horsemen merchandise up right now, exclusive Four Horsemen merchandise. You can check out at onetruesport.com. Check it all out. As you guys all know, if you're tuning into this show, One True Sport is the home of Mr. Rob Van Dam, Magnum TA, Jake the Snake Roberts, Medusa, Greg Gagne, Bill Alfonso, Kurt Angle. All kinds of great stuff happen here at One True Sport. Join the movement. Subscribe to the channel. Become a member. onetruesport.com. So what's going on here in the wrestling world? So as I said, there was no One True Sport Daily yesterday. So we're going to hit on Wednesday night first, AEW Dynamite, which I thought was a pretty darn good show. I was very sports entertained, you could say. I mean, the first thing I wanted to talk about was that phenomenal one-on-one segment that we saw with Will Ospreay and AEW World Champion Swerve Strickland, really setting the tone for Forbidden Door, which is just over a week away now, 9 days away as we record this show live this Friday morning. And, when they first announced this match, we talked a lot about it over on my podcast, Top Rope Nation. And we thought, maybe they're getting to this match a little bit early. I think most wrestling fans thought that Will Ospreay would be main eventing All In at Wembley Stadium, his home country. And instead we're getting at Forbidden Door. And the crowd in Long Island, they're in for a treat, man. I mean, this match, I am hyped for it. I think the last 2 weeks in particular, Swerve and Ospreay have really set the tone for this story. It felt like they're kind of hot-shotting this match. You're getting to it really quickly. You got the two top babyface stars in this promotion right now. And, Swerve was the hot star coming off of last fall, going into Revolution, and then he wins the championship at Dynasty. But then you got this guy, Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay's momentum right now is undeniable. You can't deny what the guy is doing. I mean, I was just at Dynamite last week. I was at Dynasty. And as much as I love Swerve Strickland, I have been a huge supporter of him for years now. I think Ospreay's momentum is like, he is the number one babyface in the promotion right now, as far as crowd response goes. at least. So it's put Swerve in a pretty awkward situation because he definitely deserves to be world champion. He's right there. I mean, we're talking 1A, 1B as far as the top face of the promotion goes. But it almost feels like the rise of Ospreay has overshadowed Swerve a little bit. And when they first announced this match, my thought was that I wouldn't be that surprised if they went to Ospreay. I know it would be a quick title change, but dude, this guy's momentum is so hot right now. But then at the same time, it's like, do you really want to cut off Swerve Strickland already as he's growing into this role as a world champion? And I think my pick right now, and especially based on what we saw Wednesday night on Dynamite, is that I think Swerve Strickland's going to retain the title. And I think that Ospreay is going to go through a split with the Callis family. They might cost him the match. And he'll move in a different direction, which I think, you let me know in the chat what you think. I think that's the right call. I think Ospreay needs to get away from the Callis family immediately. And I mean, he doesn't really need to be in that faction. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I think that that's going to be the out for this ascendant star to lose a world title match and for you to keep the belt on Swerve Strickland. My question for you in the chat is, do you think Swerve Strickland should go back to being a heel? You know, we know in the past he's been that dastardly heel. He's been this heel who had the great feud with Hangman Page. More on that in a second because I want to talk about Hangman Page. But the crowd warmed up to him just because he is so undeniably good. So would Swerve be better served as a heel with Ospreay, this ascendant top babyface right now? Or do you keep them both as baby faces and you kind of have that Steve Austin Rock, you know, kind of situation going on like they had in the WWF in the late 90s? What do we think? Let's see. Andrew in the chat. Put this up on the screen. Andrew says, no, the fans made him a baby face because they respect his work. I mean, I agree with you. Despite him playing such a dastardly heel on TV, how can you deny how good this guy is? Swerve Strickland is one of the smoothest operators in the ring. The way he moves move to move that I have ever seen as a 35 plus year pro wrestling fan. So I was a huge, we nicknamed our podcast Top Swerve Nation because we were such big supporters of Swerve Strickland. Let's see. Andrew says, whenever wrestling fans are forced to digest something, the product suffers. That's true. You definitely can't force it. And, you know, MJF Ospreay standoff. Also, we got that fermenting here in AEW. I know people have been down on AEW a lot, you know, lately, and people talk a lot about the ticket sales and the TV ratings. I think AEW television right now has been phenomenal. I mean, there's some things on TV that I could nitpick for sure, but I think this main event scene is really good right now. I think the women's title scene is very interesting right now. You've got some big time matches on the horizon with MJF and Ospreay. Eventually, you got an Ospreay and Danielson rematch eventually. Oh, and by the way, Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page still have to have their third match. I mean, that was the best storyline, I would say, of the last year in AEW. I don't think, to me, there's no question. That's the best storyline they've had in the last year. Make that about the world title, have Swerve retain at Forbidden Door. Let's talk about Hangman Page. Let me go to the graphic here, and let's take a look at the Owen Hart Cup and the bracket that was revealed the other night on Dynamite. Some people a little down on this bracket, other people very excited. I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle. There's some matches here, though, that I am extremely excited about. So we saw Claudio and Pac open up the tournament Wednesday night on Dynamite in the main event. And I thought the match was okay. I thought the opener between Roosh and MJF was a better match as far as Dynamite is concerned, but Pac went over, which, might have surprised some people. We did have Claudio upset after the match with Brian on guest commentary trying to calm him down. I mean, but when you look at this bracket, Brian Danielson and Shingo Takagi at Forbidden Door, I cannot wait for this match. You guys, if you've never seen it, go back 2010. Danielson and Takagi worked a 30-plus minute match for Dragon Gate. Unbelievable match. We are in for a treat. Danielson and Takagi at Forbidden Door is going to be a 4.5+ star match. No question about it in my mind. That match is going to be amazing. You look at the other side of the bracket. All right, Ray Phoenix, Jay White. I really like both of these guys. If you really want to get nitpicky on the bracket, maybe Phoenix doesn't belong in it at this point in time, coming off the match and the loss to Ospreay. But that's going to be a really good match. There were some people online that were complaining about Jeff Jarrett being in this tournament. Those people must not have been watching wrestling back in 1999, because Jeff Jarrett absolutely makes sense to be in the Owen Hart Memorial Cup. Jeff Jarrett was Owen Hart's last tag team partner. They were tag team champions, Canadian Country, in the spring of 1999. Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart worked together in Owen's last match, May 22nd, 1999, at the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago. A victory over Edge and Christian. And we got that wild card slot here opposite of Jeff Jarrett. Who's going to be the wild card? Could they call on Christian with that connection to Owen Hart and Owen Hart's last match? Could it be Will Ospreay? Will Ospreay could be coming off a loss at Forbidden Door to Swerve Strickland, and he could look at the AEW Owen Hart tournament as an opportunity to get back into the title picture and potentially still main event All In at the end of August. Or maybe, just maybe, that's Hangman Adam Page. I think right now, initially when I saw the bracket, my thought was this would be Will Ospreay, and then he would still get into the title picture for All In. But now, after recording with my guys on Top Rope Nation last night, check out our YouTube channel for that show, the Top Rope Nation YouTube channel, I'm pretty sold on this being Hangman Adam Page. And Adam Page walking away with the tournament cup, and Adam Page challenging Swerve Strickland in the main event of All In. Again, the best storyline in AEW over the last year. I'm sure people want to see Will Ospreay main event that show, being, the home countryman. But are people really going to complain about getting Swerve Hangman 3? I don't think anybody would complain about that, right? So that'd be my pick as the wild card. But this is what makes it exciting. There are multiple people. I think those would be my top 3 choices: Christian, the connection to Owen Hart, Will Ospreay, or Hangman Adam Page, who I can't wait to see come back. So it is a very interesting tournament. But I do think Brian is going to be in the finals. That makes the most sense when they get to Calgary up on July 10th. And initially I thought Bryan Danielson main eventing All In also could be the way they go, because Bryan Danielson, in the last full-time year of his wrestling career, I have been beating this drum ever since he came to AEW. I think Bryan Danielson is one of my favorites of all time. Has been maybe a little bit too generous, and that Bryan Danielson needs to be on this title lineage, and Bryan Danielson needs to be AEW world champion before he hangs him up. I'd love to see Danielson become world champion and eventually drop it to Ospreay in a rematch, or drop it back to Swerve. And so I wouldn't complain if Bryan Danielson walked away with the Owen Hart Memorial Cup. That'd be a solid way to go too. So they have numerous directions. It makes me more interested in AEW television. I also really like the way how I'm looking at the chat right now. I'll get to that comment in a second. I like the way that they're kind of letting these matches breathe. Right? They've let these matches breathe because you're not going to get the wild card until after Forbidden Door. So it leaves it open to people, even Okada, people who have matches at Forbidden Door. People questioning in the chat, Hangman in the main event of Webley? LOL. Of course, this guy's a former world champion. And if you're not watching AEW, I don't know how you could complain about that. Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland had 2 absolute match of the year contenders, notably the match at Full Gear. Nobody would complain about those 2 getting back in the ring. So I could see that. We'll see what they do. If they did go Hangman and Swerve for the title at All In, then I think you would have probably Bryan and Ospreay in a rematch on the undercard to really strengthen this show. But we'll see. So that is the men's bracket. All right, let's take a look at the women's bracket, because again, this is the first One True Sport Daily since these brackets were revealed. So I wanted to make sure to talk about this. All right, here is the women's bracket for the AEW Owen Hart Memorial Cup. And we did see Statlander get the victory over Nyla Rose in the opening round here on Wednesday night. All the other matches set to come: Willow Nightingale, Serena Deeb, Deonna Purrazzo, Hikaru Shida, and then Mariah May and Saraya. And we saw the attack by Saraya and her group during the women's segment Wednesday night on Dynamite. My pick here, let me know what you think. Mariah May makes the most sense to me. I think there's mileage to get out of this Mariah May Toni Storm storyline before they split them, but I feel like the long-term plan here has probably been to get to the Mariah May Toni Storm match in London at Wembley Stadium. They're definitely pushing Statlander really heavily right now, and Chris Statlander is somebody who would be deserving of a match against Toni Storm. I just don't know if I see that happening at all in at Wembley Stadium. Willow Nightingale, Serena Deeb. I mean, this is a very, very strong bracket as well, but I just think Mariah May on the women's side, we talk about Ospreay being that ascendant star in AEW that's undeniable right now. I think Mariah May has a ton of momentum. The crowd loves her. She gets great responses from the crowd. She's an accomplished wrestler in her own right from Stardom, and we've talked about her, following that trajectory that Toni Storm had and eventually splitting. So I think maybe we'll get some clues on if that split is going to happen when we see how this matchup for the AEW women's title goes at Forbidden Door between her two friends. We shall see. We've got some other people checking in. Andrew again. He says, better lineup than the men. I mean, it's hard to argue. This is a really strong bracket. We've got the boss checking in here with the One True Sport handle. I'd like to see Saraya finally get the push. She'd be a big one for Storm at Wembley. For sure. Absolutely. I mean, again, being from England, you can definitely see that match happening. Saraya 2 years in a row, getting a featured spot at Wembley Stadium would be hard to argue with that. Purrazzo is out there too. Yeah, I think this is just as unpredictable as the men's bracket. You could go a number of different ways. I think with the men's, you're looking at this situation where you got the wild card, which could play such a big role. Here we have the revealed names. But I mean, you can make a case for over half of these women to get in there and main event with Toni Storm at Wembley Stadium for sure. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what's happening here. We got a great chat going. Thanks for everyone tuning in today. Really appreciate that. Phil is here. Andrew's been very active in the chat as well. Let us know your thoughts as we make our way through what's going on here in the wrestling world as we close out a exciting week. Zach talked about so much the other day on Wednesday. I watched that show. Zach talked about the rumors, or maybe it was Tuesday. I can't remember, but we've definitely talked about the rumors that Shane McMahon has had discussions with AEW. And this came from Conrad Thompson and Jim Ross on a podcast the other day where Conrad said that he talked to someone where there had been some feelers put out by Shane McMahon about coming into AEW. And Tony Khan issued a statement to the Wrestling Observer. He said, quote, "I've never met him or talked to him in my life," end quote. Who knows? Wrestling promoters are going to be wrestling promoters. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. It would be wild to see Shane McMahon in AEW, maybe like an appearance or two. I don't know that I need to see him there full time. Let me know in the chat what you guys think. But it would be amusing to see him come in there for just a couple of appearances. I don't know. It's extremely likely, and Tony Khan is denying it, but it's interesting to talk about. I know Zach talked about AEW and getting their full pay-per-view archive on Triller the other day. That was huge news for the company as well. So lots of things going on with AEW this week. Are you guys watching on Vice Who Killed WCW? I ranted about this on my podcast, Top Rope Nation, the other night. I'm curious. Have you guys, I know there hasn't been a lot of discussion on One True Sport about this yet, on One True Sport Daily at least. Are you guys watching Who Killed WCW on Vice? They're 3 episodes in right now. I got a lot of thoughts on this show. I see we're 20 minutes into the stream right now. We're supposed to go about a half hour. I don't want to make this a 90-minute podcast. Dom might never let me host again. But I would say if you guys have not been watching Who Killed WCW, it's worth watching to see the comments from the talking heads. It's worth watching. I mean, wrestling fans eat up this behind the scenes stuff. They got footage on there I've never seen before. notably from the last Nitro, which we're getting to on the series as it comes to a conclusion next week. On the second episode, settle in for that second episode, Albs, because Dom's saying you can go longer if needed. I'll just say, the first episode just kind of talked about, just to briefly summarize, the history of the promotion, bringing in Eric Bischoff, and wherever you fall on Eric Bischoff, genius, not smart, killed WCW, helped out WCW tremendously. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. You've got to give Eric credit for modernizing that company, for improving production, for bringing in the star power, for using that Japan-inspired NWO storyline that really lit the company on fire. But he also deserves criticism for how it went in the end. The first episode basically just told the history of the promotion. It really focused heavily on Eric Bischoff. And it seemed like it was going to be a very pro Eric Bischoff show until the end, and then people started criticizing him a little bit. The second episode got into Goldberg and the decision to beat him and end the streak. And it got into Goldberg ending Bret Hart's career. And I got to say, Bret Hart has been phenomenal on this show. He holds nothing back on Bischoff, on the other brass, on Hogan, on Goldberg in particular. And they talked about the career-ending injury. And Nash, for his part, he still thinks that the finger poke of doom after he beat Goldberg was nothing wrong with that. He thinks him beating Goldberg was defensible. He says that for him, the money has always been in the babyface chasing the champion, and that's why him getting involved in booking in late 98 and early 99, he wanted to get the title off of Goldberg. Make of that what you will. That was the second episode. Andrew, I mean, I definitely, as I was watching it, I had similar responses to some of the quotes on there. To beat Goldberg was not a smart decision in this wrestling podcast and writers, in my opinion. The finger poke of doom, not great according to this guy. Hey David, thanks for checking in to the show, appreciate it. Episode 3, which aired this week on Vice, got into Vince Russo and Vince Russo's involvement with the company. And if you watch 2099 WCW, I'll just say you probably don't want to relive it. For anyone that goes on social media and compares modern day wrestling and says this is as bad as WCW at the end, you didn't watch WCW at the end. Seeing these clips and refreshing my memory of some of those Nitros and Thunders and pay-per-views that I regretfully sat through in 2000, the worst Dynamite, the worst Raw, the worst SmackDown is nowhere close to what we were seeing in that era. And Vince Russo in episode 3 defends putting himself in the world title scene and becoming WCW world champion. He defends putting the title on David Arquette and all the cringeworthy things that happen. You can watch it, you can laugh, you can cry, you can agree, whatever you think. But it's certainly been something to watch. I'll say that. It has been entertaining, maybe not in the best way for this wrestling. I would call myself a somewhat wrestling historian. Some of these stories that they're going through just do not jive with the history of this promotion. Oh my God, Andrew. I was at a Thunder taping the day after the New Blood reset. It was indescribably awful. Oh man, Andrew, you have my pity, my friend. I went to a Nitro in May of 1999 where they didn't have a single, this was the 3-hour Nitros. They didn't have a single match the first hour of the show. We sat there and sat there and sat there. And then I think Mysterio came out and he got like a Hogan pop because people were so excited that we were finally getting a wrestling match on that show. It was a bad show. Although I will say at the end, Macho Man Randy Savage punched out a fan who jumped in the ring. This was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. May 17th, 99, I believe was the show. Not the most memorable show that I have been to. That's for sure. Yeah. There was just Andrew getting into this in the chat. There's way too much movement with the world title. Forfeits, celebrities. Vince Russo actually said on episode 3 that he was more talented than 80% of the locker room, and that's why he put himself on television so much. Come on, bro. More talented than 80% of the locker room? Vince Russo was a writer who came from WWF, who wasn't a screen character in the WWF, and then he went to WCW as head writer, and he made himself the focal point on television. To me, that's not a recipe for success. Maybe you think differently, but not great. Not great in this guy's opinion. Let's move over to WWE. We got SmackDown tonight at the Allstate Arena. I've been to a couple of shows at the Allstate Arena, including WrestleMania 22. I know that's in Zack Heydorn, the usual host here on One True Sport Daily. That's his neck of the woods. To me, it's the best arena for pro wrestling in the country. No offense, Philadelphia or New York, but something about the Allstate Arena, the former Rosemont Horizon. It's got these wooden beams. It's an old arena. The ceiling is made of wood. And the way that the sound reverberates in that arena is something special. It is so loud in there. It's incredible. And if you read interviews with wrestlers, I mean, you could ask some of the guys here on the channel. Ask Rob Van Dam sometime, his favorite arena to wrestle in. Ask Jake Roberts. Ask Kurt Angle. It's usually listed as the top arena for wrestlers. They love wrestling there, Madison Square Garden for the history as well. But it's because it's so loud in there. And I know that, they just had a Raw there not too long ago and had a massive crowd. I'm sure they're going to have a massive crowd tonight for SmackDown. If we look at what's been revealed for the show so far, Punk said that he would be there in the press scrum when he appeared and cost Drew McIntyre the Raw World title at Clash at the Castle. So Punk's going to be there. He's going to be returning to his hometown yet again at the Allstate Arena for the third time now? Survivor Series, Raw, and now SmackDown since returning to the WWE. So Punk's going to be on the show tonight, 7 o'clock Central, 8 Eastern on Fox. Cody Rhodes is going to be on the show. He's going to respond to the Bloodlines attack at Clash at the Castle, where he was attacked. And then who came out but Randy Orton and Kevin Owens for the save. I think you're probably going to get to a 6-man match between the Bloodline, Orton, Rhodes, KO, and Money in the Bank. And then you're going to have a split. And probably you're looking at Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton at SummerSlam, which is a mega star power match. I think that's the way to go. No issues with that on my end. We also got on the show tonight, LA Knight confronting the U.S. champion Logan Paul. And then we've got a triple threat Money in the Bank qualifier match between Randy Orton, Tama Tonga, and Carmelo Hayes. So, I mean, I guess he could pull double duty, but for me, with my idea that you're going to get a 6-man tag at Money in the Bank with Orton in it, I don't think he's going to be in Money in the Bank match. So I think you're going to get Tama Tonga or Carmelo Hayes winning this match tonight. We'll see what happens. But Money in the Bank, is shaping up to be pretty interesting. We've got Jey Uso already qualified for the men's match. We got Io Sky on the women's side. She won the match on Raw. And then on Raw, we saw Seth Rollins return, as Zach talked about earlier this week, of course. And he's going to be wrestling Damian Priest. And just like there's so many moving pieces at the top of the card in AEW that I went through a minute ago, a lot of moving pieces at the top of the card for WWE, definitely more so on the Raw side. SmackDown, maybe not so much. It's pretty predictable with Cody and Orton, the direction they're going. But on Raw, you got Drew McIntyre doing the quitting storyline. You got CM Punk coming back into the fold. You got Gunther waiting there. You got Seth Rollins back there. They want to do Seth Rollins and Punk. They want to do Drew McIntyre and Punk. There's lots of marquee big matches for the WWE to get to in the coming months. So I am really, really looking forward to the top of the card, at least on Monday nights now. And I got to tell you, for a number of years, it took a lot to get me to watch Monday Night Raw live. I watch it on DVR. I catch the highlights. SmackDown was way more the priority for me, and I'll watch SmackDown tonight. But right now, I am very invested in Monday Night Raw, and I've been watching it for the last several weeks live. And I got 3 young kids; they love watching Raw too. So WWE is definitely doing something right. Yeah, David mentioning what I was just talking about the Rosemont Horizon. The acoustics are insane. I was there for Mania 22. I've been to some concerts there. It's an incredible arena out in the suburbs of Chicago. Andrew, Stone Cold always mentions it first. Yep, it helps that Mania 13 was there. And in my humble opinion, the greatest match in WrestleMania history, Bret Hart and Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13 back in 1997. Definitely didn't hurt that it was in that legendary building, the Rosemont Horizon. So, guys, we're a half hour in. This has been a lot of fun. I want to thank Zack Heydorn for letting me sit in the guest chair. I will be back on Monday Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe, is the schedule, hosting One True Sport Daily. So you can check me out live here on the channel, on the One True Sport channel. Then, if you want more content from me, please check out Top Rope Nation. It's available wherever podcasts are found. We also have a YouTube channel. We just did a show last night that I think was really, really good. Way more talk on who killed WCW. If you want to get into that with my two co-hosts, Jesse Velasquez and Justin Joint. If you like the show today, I think you'll like Top Rope Nation. You can check it out, the YouTube channel, or wherever podcasts are found. We also have a Facebook group that you can search. It's called Top Rope Nation Pro Wrestling Discussion. Love to have you guys jump in there as you also support One True Sport. And you can find me on social media. The handle is at Ryan Droste. That's Droste. Instagram, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, Threads. I'm on all of them. And Top Rope Nation is the handle for my podcast. So check it out, everybody. Yeah, I'll be back on Monday. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I appreciate the chat room and all your support today. It's a lot easier to do these shows, when we have the active chat room. Love to have the back and forth. So please return and check this show out again on Monday. I'll be back right here, same time, 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Central on Monday. We'll see you all then. Have a good weekend, everybody. Take care.